Good evening, sci-fi movie nerds, and welcome to another episode of the Sci-Fi Movie Guy. I've got Jason from Trench Run Rebels here today with me, and we're doing our top 10 canon Jedi lists. So this is a special show. First thing we're going to do, though, is tell you how we made our top 10 Jedi list. So Jason, do you want to go first?
Well, I built my list off of a few factors. Obviously, favoritism comes into play, but I built the list off of, I think, maybe the power that they might have, their force abilities, their strength in the force, and what they actually did for the Jedi Order. I think that was the kind of the thing that topped my list, what they've done for the Jedi Order.
Okay, and for my list, what I did was again, my favorite Jedi from watching them, but B, it was the most powerful according to me. And when I say the most powerful, it's not necessarily how great they were with a lightsaber. It could have been their force abilities. It could have been the way that their wisdom and they interacted and trained apprentices. So it was very similar, I think, to what you did. Just I had a few little different things in there. Mm-hmm. So what we're going to do first is we're going to tell you how the show works. It's really similar to Matt Nost and John Roca on their top 10 list on Collider Videos. So thanks, guys. I stole your format. Again, please think of it as a compliment and not copyright infringement. And so what we're going to do is Jason's going to give his bottom three, then I'll give my bottom three, then his bottom two, my bottom two, and then we'll trade one apiece until we get to number one. Now, if Jason has something higher on his list than I do, and I say at number 10 it's this Jedi, he's going to say, oh, sorry, Mike, we're punting. I got it way higher on my list. So that's easy, the rules. So we'll get started. And Jason, do you want me to go first, or you're the guest? You go first?
You go first.
All right. So my number 10 is Qui-Gon Jinn.
Punt.
Already? Okay.
He's way up on my list.
Okay, so we got a punt there already. So then my number 9 is Kanan Jarrus.
He's not actually on my list at all.
Okay, so I'll tell you why he's on my list, and then maybe you can tell me why you didn't make your list.
Sure.
So Kanan Jarrus, up until Rebels Season 3, he probably wouldn't have made my list. But at the end of Season 2, when he got blinded by Maul, to me, that really sent this character into a new development. For some reason, his force abilities have grown. He's become wiser. I think he's become a better teacher for Ezra. And I really like the way that they're finally developing this character into being a full Jedi. I know he became a Jedi Knight in that Jedi Temple when he got knighted finally, but I always, again, with these canon Jedi, I think our rules were that all they had to do is have once been in the Jedi Order. They could have been kicked out, they could have left, it didn't matter. Right. So again, if it wasn't for him blinded, probably wouldn't have made my list, but he came in number 9 for that reason.
I really, really like Kanan, and kind of what you spoke to. If not for his progression that he's made now, I wouldn't even consider him for the list. I actually, at one point, I did have him on the list. I bumped him I just moved things around. But early on, and if you've read the Canon novel, A New Dawn. I
just finished it.
Great novel. I recommend reading it. It really shows how after Order 66, and he just kind of moved away. He changed his name.
Yeah.
He didn't want anything to do with the Jedi Order. He wanted to kind of do away with it. And since that point, he's been gradually kind of thrown back into it, taking on a Padawan, reluctantly taking on a Padawan, not really wanting to do it. But his progression, his growth has been tremendous. He's got a bright future as long as he remains alive.
Yeah, which is very doubtful because we never saw him in
really up in the
episode 4, 5, and 6.
Right.
So yeah, I don't think any of them are making it out of this, but that's just my opinion.
But no, I had him on my list, so he's definitely deserving to be on the list for sure.
All right, so my number 8 is Count Dooku, who used to be a Jedi. They said he was on the Council, and then he went to the dark side.
He's not on my list.
Okay. So the reason Count Dooku's on my list is for a couple of reasons. One, when he fights in Attack of the Clones, he fights Obi-Wan and Anakin, and he beats them both pretty handily. Cuts off Anakin's arm, uses Force lightning on them, and he made it look like it was pretty easy to defeat these two guys. Now, at that time, I know Anakin wasn't quite the Jedi that we knew him to become later in the Clone Wars animated series,
Right.
but Obi-Wan was a pretty good Jedi,
Yep.
and he knew what he was doing. So for him to take them down so handily, and I just love the actor that plays him. He's one of my favorite actors going around. So that's kind of the reason Dooku made my list.
He didn't make my list just for the fact that he turned to the dark side. He went to the dark side. Yes, very powerful. I think that he was, easily turned to the dark side.
Yeah.
I know it's not really canon, but it does kind of go into it in Darth Plagueis, the novel.
Yeah.
It does talk about that transition in there. Very political. He was a political figure on his homeworld, which kind of plays into it a little bit. But very powerful, but he didn't make my list.
Okay, so those are my bottom three. Now it's your turn.
So my number 10 is Mace Windu.
Punt. Yeah, we're punting. He's much higher on my list. Sorry.
Okay, so we're going to talk about it when we get to it.
When we get to it on mine, yeah.
Okay. Number 9, I had Terrace Sanube.
Okay, Terrace Sanube, not on my list.
He's not on your list. Okay. So Terrace Sanube is a Clone Wars exclusive character. He showed up, I think, in 2 separate episodes. The one
I only remember him in one episode.
I think it was just a cameo in another episode.
Okay, because I remember him in season 3.
Yeah.
Where he helped out Ezra? Or not Ezra, where he helped out Ahsoka.
Yeah, the Lightsaber Lost, I think, was the name of the episode. I really like the character. He reminds me a lot of Yoda in how, obviously, he's old, but he uses wisdom to solve his problems. He doesn't go running into fights. He doesn't, move before he thinks about it. And I really like the wisdom aspect of it and being able to overcome the obstacles in that episode using his wisdom alone.
I think the other thing that I liked about him, even though he didn't make my list, was the fact that they had him in the Jedi Archive library, and he was sitting at a computer, I think, when they first introduced him.
Right.
And he kind of was a little bit quirky. He didn't
He
really
was
want to
very quirky.
engage anyone, and he's like, well, what do you need?
He was kind of that Yoda on Dagobah
Yeah.
when they first meet him, yeah.
So I did like him. Again, just, didn't quite make my list. So what's your number 9 then? Or no, that was your
That was my
9.
9.
So what's your 8?
So my number 8 is Quinlan Vos.
Oh, okay. I'll let you go, but
Are you punting? He's on
no,
your
he's
list?
not on my list.
Okay.
But from my understanding, he was only in, again, one episode of the Clone Wars, right?
He was in one episode of the Clone Wars. I know that we talked about keeping this canon.
And that's canon.
And that is canon.
Yeah, it is.
The book that he was in recently with Asajj Ventress is also considered canon.
What's the book?
The name is escaping me right now.
Okay, I obviously haven't read it.
I think it's called Dark Jedi,
Okay.
I believe.
Does he have a great role in that?
He's starring in the book.
Okay.
The book is all about him. I know that the concept for Quinlan Vos came from a background character in episode 1. There was a background character in episode 1 that had the yellow line across his face, and
I saw that when they were kind of walking by at the pod race scene.
yeah, exactly. And so they kind of pulled it from that, and they built this in the expanded universe. They built this character. Yes, again, he only showed up in one episode of Clone Wars. Was an interesting character, but it's because of that book that he actually makes my list. And the reason that he makes my list, he's a badass, plain and simple. But his ability to be a part of the Jedi, and then he actually goes kind of covertly, and he actually helps Asajj Ventress. He has some dealings with Count Dooku while he's on the dark side. So he's actually kind of full on in the dark side, but still working for the Jedi. He's got this big double agent kind of thing going on. But it's his ability to step into the dark side, do some really questionable things at times, but keep his bearings the whole time and be able to come back from that. That in and of itself was the reason enough for me to put him on my list.
And I do remember the episode really well in the Clone Wars animated series where him and Obi-Wan were kind of at odds a lot.
Yeah, he's kind of a
Obi-Wan's
smart
like,
ass.
I remember why I hate you so much, I think was one of the lines
Right.
Obi-Wan used on him. And he was was he a tracker? I think he...
Yeah, he's got some tracking ability. He can grab an object and sense who's used it and where that person might be.
So it was a really cool thing that I had never seen out of another Jedi. But again, lots more Jedi for me, so that's why he didn't make my list.
Yeah, and it was the book alone. The book.
So I'm going to have to read the book, and maybe he'll be on my next list. Okay, so what number was that? That was your number?
That was my 8.
Okay, so we've done your bottom 3, my bottom 3. So my number 7 is Plo Koon.
That's my number 7 as well.
Okay, perfect. So we can
Right
talk
on the
about
money.
it.
Yeah, let's do it.
So Plo Koon, I think we first saw him when Order 66 happened in episode 3. Just for 2 minutes,
He was
a fighter pilot getting shot
he was
down
in the
by
council
his...
as well.
Did we see him on a council? But we didn't really get to find out anything about this character in the movies. But then again, the Clone Wars animated series, which, guys, I'm a huge fan of. If you haven't watched the Clone Wars animated series, you have to watch it. It was something Lucas did, and he did it really well. And obviously, it's the guy who does Rebels,
Dave Filoni.
Dave Filoni. And, Filoni did the Clone Wars. He was amazing at it. He's amazing at Rebels now. But the thing that really got me with Plo Koon is how much Ahsoka had respect for him, because she had been trained under him with all the other Padawans at the academy. So when he shows up later, Ahsoka tells Anakin about Plo Koon and all the things and the respect she had for him. And then to actually see him go into different battles and things with Anakin and with Obi-Wan really impressed me as a Jedi. His powers were off the charts. They said he was an incredible pilot. So yeah, that's why he made my list.
Yeah. I think one of the reasons he became such a hit in the show is he's Dave Filoni's favorite character.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Dave Filoni loves Plo Koon, so anytime he could, he's going to make Plo Koon the man, right? He was very powerful. He's got that great voice, that deep, commanding voice, and he's a great leader. He's powerful. He's wise. He could be higher on my list if I talked myself into it, but I put him at number 7.
Now, I wonder if because he's Filoni's favorite, I wonder if he's really pissed off that they showed him dying in episode 3, so he can't use him in Rebels now.
Well, I mean, I think he kind of became his favorite character retroactively, right? I mean, Clone Wars was made after episode 3, so he knew full well that he was going to bite it, so...
Okay. So that was your number, or my number 7. So now my number 6 is Ahsoka... No, my number 6 is Luke Skywalker. Punt?
Yeah.
All right.
It's a little bit higher for me.
Okay, so then we go to your number 7, which was Plo Koon already.
My number 7 was Plo Koon, and my number 6 is Ahsoka Tano.
Okay, so we're punting on that one, because she's higher on my list.
Okay.
So then that puts me at number 5, which is now we can talk about Mace Windu. Because he was lower on your... What number was he for you?
He was number 10.
Okay, so he was number 10 on your list. He's number 5 on my list. I guess I have to sell him to you. So the reason I think Mace Windu deserves the number 5 spot is I like the fan theory. I'm not sure if it's the actual theory, and there's more to it, but this is the first thing, is he had the purple lightsaber, and he's the only one that ever had a purple lightsaber. Now, I know I've heard that when he went to pick his lightsaber, the actor... who plays him, why is it?
Samuel L. Jackson.
Samuel L. Jackson said, hey, can I have a purple lightsaber? He just wanted something different. But then, throughout the other things, they said the reason he might have a purple lightsaber is because he's just on that wall of light side, dark side. And he can tap into the dark side when he needs it, but he can still keep it together as a Jedi. The other thing that I really thought was impressive, and tell me if I'm wrong, but he almost defeated the Emperor by himself.
You're not wrong.
So
He's very powerful.
the Emperor, being the most powerful Sith, argumentatively, he almost took him down. If it wasn't for Anakin,
I would say he did take him down.
Yeah.
He had him, and he was going to do the job. As Well, he
But-
did have him. He was going to do the job, but how much was Palpatine holding back?
Because he wanted to pull Anakin for the
Right.
last thing. Yeah, and that's the argument. Was he really getting the Emperor, or was the Emperor holding back?
Right.
But just for the fact that he almost killed the Emperor, and he was just a cool badass.
Totally.
That's why he made my number 5.
So I had him at number 10. The reason he's on my list are basically all the reasons that you were talking about. He's a total badass. I believe that he's, and we're kind of dipping out of canon here, but I believe they talk about him being the most powerful Jedi.
Yeah, I've heard that
the
too.
strongest Force user. If you ever watched the Clone Wars animated series that came before the Clone Wars, the little micro series that they had, that Tartakovsky directed,
No, I haven't seen that. Which is surprising.
you should check them out. They're really cool. They're not canon, so they're kind of different, I guess, legends they would be now.
Yeah.
But there's an episode about Mace Windu, and he takes on this massive squadron of battle droids, super battle droids, the whole works, and he just obliterates them all. He's very much a badass in that episode, very powerful. But that aside, he's powerful, he's strong. But the reason he falls to number 10 is because, to me, he's the epitome of everything that's wrong with the Jedi.
Okay.
He's arrogant, he's full of himself, and
That's
It
not
gets
a
in
Jedi.
the way.
Jedi are selfless.
Jedi are self-obsessed. His persona kind of gets in the way of being a true Jedi.
Okay, fair
That's
enough.
why he falls all the way to number 10 for me.
So that was my number 5. So now I think we're at your number 5.
My number 5 is Anakin Skywalker.
Okay, we're punting again.
Okay.
He's higher on my list.
Okay.
So that puts us at my number 4 now, which is Ahsoka Tano. So I think she was 6 on...
6 on mine, yeah.
Okay, so now we can talk about Ahsoka. So you had her first, so you go first.
Okay, I really like Ahsoka Tano. When we were first introduced to her and the whole Sky Guy and...
You mean the Clone Wars movie?
The Clone Wars movie,
Yeah.
which is canon still.
Yeah, that was the Clone Wars animated movie.
The movie, which I did see in a theater.
I did too.
A little disappointed. Yeah, when we first met her, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is not going to be very good at all. But her character growth was phenomenal. Throughout the Clone Wars, again, if you haven't seen it, do it. Netflix, they've got all of it on there. Her character growth was phenomenal. She became extremely intelligent, extremely powerful, extremely confident.
I love her 2 white lightsabers. Like, she was
And the Rebels, the white
kick,
lightsabers.
kick ass.
Yeah, when she shows up later on the Rebels, she's even that much more advanced. I loved how she was a little bit betrayed by the Jedi, and then they started to welcome her back, and she was just like, you know what? No, I'm walking away from this. I like that she had the confidence to do that. She saw some of the flaws in the Jedi Order, and she chose to walk away from that. I really like that. The only reason that she wasn't higher was just because of the people that fall above her,
Yeah.
I think, are more deserving.
Now, for me, Ahsoka was 4, higher on my list, because I loved the way that she pulled out the best in Anakin. And I think if it wasn't for her, Anakin would have turned dark long before he did. I really think that she kept him grounded in some ways, because it gave him kind of a mission. Like, he would see in her all of the bad traits that were in him and go, okay, you know what? I got to keep her in line, which keeps me in line. And I really like that part in the Clone Wars animated series. But I really fell in love with her when she showed up again in Rebels.
Yeah.
That's what did it for me, was seeing that she still wasn't a Jedi. She doesn't call herself a Jedi, but she is a powerful
Emphatically,
Force.
I'm no Jedi.
Yeah. But a powerful Force user. And her fight with Darth Vader at the end of season 2. You know, Darth Vader's in his prime in Rebels. He is in his fighting prime as Darth Vader. I mean, obviously the suit hurts him, but he uses the Force to help move the suit. So for her to stand toe-to-toe, and we still don't know if he killed her or if she got away. It's still up in the air. But for her to go toe-to-toe in a lightsaber battle like that against Darth Vader, kudos in my book. That's why she was so high on my list. And I loved Ashley Eckstein, the voice of Ahsoka.
Phenomenal job. Yeah, she's done a great job.
Just doing a great job. And the book just came out, Ahsoka. which talks about what happens right after she left the Jedi Order.
Okay.
And I just downloaded it on Audible. And Ashley Eckstein's actually doing the Audible book.
Nice.
So she reads the whole book. So I'm really excited to read that. I haven't had a chance yet. I just got it last week. But I think that's even going to make me like her even more.
Yeah. Just a counter to one of the points that you made. You said that you feel that potentially Ahsoka might have
delayed
Anakin's fall.
Yeah.
You could look at it that she actually helped it, though, as well.
How?
Just because of Anakin's fears of losing people. He didn't want to lose his mother. He did. When he lost his mother, he went crazy. Slaughterhouse. He didn't want to lose Padme. Now, all of a sudden, he's got Ahsoka. And he doesn't want to lose Ahsoka.
But in the timeline, he would have lost his mother first, then Ahsoka,
right,
and then Padme, right?
Right.
Because I think Clone Wars happens in between Episode 2 and Episode 3.
So, Ahsoka being there could have further facilitated that downfall.
Okay.
Right? Because he lost his mother, then
he meets Ahsoka and loses Ahsoka.
And so then now he's got left is Padme. He's like, I can't lose Padme. I have to keep her around. I'll do whatever it takes.
Yeah, it's an argument for both.
Yeah, it could be that way, but just an interesting point.
Absolutely. That's why we do these lists, so we can argue about them.
Exactly.
Okay, so 4 for me was Ahsoka, so now I think that'd be your number 4.
My number 4 is Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Oh, come on. We're definitely punting. Really? Number 4?
Punt away, yeah.
All right. So then my number 3 is Anakin Skywalker, which I think was your number
5.
Okay, so now we can talk about him.
Okay.
So Anakin Skywalker made number 3 for me for a lot of reasons. And I'm going to be honest, he would not have even been on my list if it was just for these 3 movies. Okay?
Fair enough.
Because those 3 movies, I'm sorry, Anakin Skywalker wasn't that great of a character. But Darth Vader in 4, 5, 6 might have been on my list because I love Darth Vader. Biggest badass in the galaxy. Still would have been considered a Jedi. But the Clone Wars animated series developed a whole new appreciation for me for Anakin. I got to see he was a badass Jedi. One of the youngest, but Obi-Wan was always complimenting how he was more powerful than he was. I don't know if I necessarily believe that, but Anakin did some amazing things with the Force at a very young age. Pod racing. Let's go back to episode 1. I mean, he's pod racing. They were very clear that no human being had ever pod raced before.
Well, his midichlorian count was off the charts.
Yeah, thanks. Bring up midichlorians.
Yes.
Hate midichlorians. But yeah, that's why Anakin's so high on my list. I mean, and the Darth Vader character. I mean, that's what really puts it over the top is I love Darth Vader.
Yeah.
So for you had him at 5?
I've got him at 5. Again, the Clone Wars animated series made that character.
Yeah.
Now, if you go back and watch the episodes in retrospect after having the knowledge from the Clone Wars, it does inform his character a lot better, and it does fill it out a lot better.
Absolutely agreed. I enjoyed the prequels after I watched all of the Clone Wars a lot more than I did the first time I watched them.
Yeah, it does inform it a lot better. He's a very powerful. I think you were talking about how Obi-Wan always is talking about how much more powerful he is. I think he does have a lot more power. I don't know that he has control of all that power.
Right.
Whereas Obi-Wan would have more control over what power he does have. I think Anakin's is a little on the edge, a little, reckless, a little edgy, could lose control at any time, like he did with the Tusken Raiders after his mom's death. Again, he turned to the dark side, so he kind of lost it there. So as far as top 10 Jedi, I think he loses points just because he fell from grace. And then
for me, he got points because he was Darth Vader.
But he did become Darth Vader, who is a total badass. But I just think the guys ahead of him are just more deserving of that.
Fair enough. So I think that puts your turn.
Where are we at now?
Number 3 for you, I think.
Number 3 for me is Qui-Gon Jinn.
Okay, and Qui-Gon was my number 10.
Oh, there you go.
So we punted from my number 10, so go ahead.
Qui-Gon Jinn. Okay, where do we start? Midichlorians. I think Qui-Gon Jinn was, and when they talk about it in the movies, he was very powerful in the living force. And this kind of can get into midichlorians. We don't have to go there.
No, we'll go there. I know you want to.
He was very powerful in the living force. And very early on, he saw the flaws in the Jedi Order. He saw the flaws in the Jedi Council. He was always speaking out against them.
Well, they didn't let him on the council because he was. They
Exactly.
would have. Didn't Obi-Wan say in one of the movies?
You would have been on the council if you weren't so strong-headed or whatever it was that he said. But
yeah.
He was speaking out against the council because he saw the flaws in the organization that was the Jedi. You could get some real-world comparisons between spirituality and church.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Force and the Jedi organization. You know, where does it become convoluted? As soon as man gets control of it, right? And I think Qui-Gon saw that early on, and he was like, you guys can have that, all the politics. You guys can have all of that junk. I'm going to
focus on the Force.
On the Force, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm going to focus on the living Force. Now, the midichlorians, we'll get into it.
Okay, go for it.
Obviously, the only mention of the midichlorians in the movies, I think they were mentioned once in the Clone Wars.
Yeah, once in the Clone Wars.
Brief passing of it.
Mostly in Phantom Menace, though.
Well, it's just the one mention in the Phantom Menace when they checked Anakin as a young boy.
No, they mentioned it again when they were all around at the council.
When he informed them.
Right. And then I think they talked about it again near the end of the movie.
Okay.
I not 100%
Yeah, because
sure.
he asked him. Because he tested his midichlorians, then he told the council, then later on Anakin asked him, what's a midichlorian? Right. So I think midichlorians were there for that time. Again, the Jedi being an organization, they need to have stats. They need to have numbers to fall back on. So, hey, let's test everyone's midichlorian counts. Now, one thing that I've heard people mention about midichlorians, and one of their major downfalls, is that because I don't have midichlorians, I can't ever become a Jedi.
That's what I say.
And I don't think that's the case at all. They never talk about it like that. They do say that Anakin's midichlorian count is off the charts. He was a virgin in the Force. They're not sure how he was even created. His mother said he has no father. I don't know what happened. I just woke up one morning and was pregnant.
Yeah, I'm not sure I believe that either. She might have just not wanted to tell everybody she was the town whore, but that's just my opinion.
Exactly. It does go into that a little bit in Darth Plagueis, the novel.
Yeah, I've read that.
If you read that, I know it's not canon. It was kind of right on the cutoff of canon and what's not.
But don't forget to get back to Qui-Gon.
I'm getting back to Qui-Gon.
All right.
But I have to go on this midichlorian rant for just a second.
Which you have done.
Which I have. So, so maybe it was Palpatine messing with the Force to create him. Anyway, so back to midichlorians. I think that midichlorians, yes, he had a high count, but I think that because they're a symbiote life form that you can access the Force through, I think that your midichlorian count could actually grow with your abilities in the Jedi Order.
And your knowledge.
Yeah. You might come into the Jedi Order with a fairly low count. You have some abilities, like that's how they find them and pick up on them. But as you grow in the Force, I think your midichlorian count could grow. And I think that's why they were so shocked. This kid has numbers that are even greater than Master Yoda's. How can this be?
So please tell me how this ties back into Qui-Gon.
Because he realized that. He realized that well, okay, that was a midichlorian rant.
Yeah,
just a
okay.
second. We'll bring it back to Qui-Gon. he did talk about the midichlorians and all that kind of stuff, but he believed in the living Force. He believed in the will of the Force. He was really the one pushing for that. This is the prophecy. This is the chosen one. How can you guys not see this? And
we all know that turned out awesome.
Lucas has gone on record saying that Anakin as Darth Vader, or possibly Anakin again, did bring balance to the Force as soon as he threw Palpatine.
Through Palpatine, yes, I know.
So the prophecy could have come true. The prophecy misread could have been. We don't know. But I think because he saw the flaw in the Jedi Order, because he was aware of that, and he was like, "Screw you guys! I'm focusing on the Force." He was the one that taught Yoda, who in turn taught Obi-Wan how to become one with the Force and do the whole Force Ghost thing.
And that's the only reason he's on my list at number 10. To me, that's the only redeeming quality he had, other than Liam Neeson played him.
And Liam Neeson, I mean, if you want to bring the actors into it, Liam Neeson's awesome.
Yeah,
right?
he is. Great actor.
If they would have given Qui-Gon that whole, "I will find you, I will kill you," they would have given him some of those lines. That would have been awesome. But just his whole focus on the Force.
Yeah.
That to me brings it over the top.
And to me, like I said, number 10, he's number 10. He made the list because he's the one that taught everybody else how to become a Force ghost and how to come back. Mm-hmm. So that's why he had to make my list, because he did something no other Jedi had ever done. And there had been Jedi for 1,000 years before Qui-Gon.
Yep.
So that's a pretty impressive stat. So that was your...
That was my number 3.
Okay, and we already did my number 3, Anakin. So now we're at my number 2. Mm-hmm. So my number 2 is Yoda.
My number 2 is Yoda as well.
Okay, so we can talk about him.
Actually kind of pains me to say that, because Yoda is my favorite character. He's my favorite Jedi.
Then he should have been number 1.
But favoritism is not the only factor of why I made this list.
All right. So Yoda for me... He's number 2, and he's the only reason he's not number 1 is because I like Another Jedi more. Mm-hmm. Yoda, by far, as we know, 900 years, he was a Jedi. He was in the Old Republic. He was in the New Republic. He made it through a lot of stuff. And he was a teacher. He was a mentor. Amazing Force abilities, lightsaber, oh my god, the jumping around lightsaber stuff in the prequels. Much as I don't really like the prequels, I love his lightsaber battle in the prequels.
Both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic.
But Yoda just gives that grandfather. He's there for everyone. He's wise. He pretends to be stupid. He pretends to be feeble. That makes people underestimate him, which is a very smart tactic. But when he gets going, and I'm not even sure, maybe he was feeble, but he uses the Force to move his body, and he's so well trained in the Force that's how he does those jumping around and lightsaber battles. Maybe the Force is moving his legs and arms. I don't know, because in Empire Strikes Back, he's jumping on his back, but we'll never know.
Right.
But to me, the mystique around Yoda, the fact that he trained Luke Skywalker, the fact that he trained lots of Jedi, who did they say out of all these Jedi that Yoda really truly trained? Who was his apprentice? Other than Luke.
Well, they talk about, they list a bunch of guys. Count Dooku.
Okay, Dooku was one of his apprentice, one of his Padawan.
But his position in the Jedi Temple.
He was so high.
He was so high that, and you saw him train an entire room of younglings.
Yeah.
So, could they all say, like, "Oh, Master Yoda trained me"?
Yeah.
Right? Because they let Count Dooku and Qui-Gon Jinn and even Obi-Wan talked about it. I think later on. So, kind of everyone's claimed, "Oh, I studied under Master Yoda." It's like, yeah, for sure. Everyone puts it as a notch in their belt to say that they studied.
I had a class with him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I remember that guy. He was awesome, yeah.
So, yeah, tell me...
All the reasons that you said are the reasons he's my favorite. Like, to me, it's his study of the Force, his strength, his power with the Force, his lightsaber abilities. He did see the flaws in the Jedi. He knew that something was wrong. He knew that, this was a dangerous path that they were going down, like, going into the wars. Skipping over into the original trilogy, him showing up on Dagobah, that's the best right there. Him being that goofy little character.
Oh, absolutely.
And Luke completely underestimates
Eating
him.
his chocolate, throwing stuff, exactly. Keeping his flashlight.
All that stuff.
Just that's what makes you fall in love with that character.
Yeah. I loved everything about it. And if just for the original trilogy, it's so tough for me to put Yoda number 2. It pains me to do it.
Well, you're going to tell us why in a minute, I'm
going to tell you why. But the whole thing on Dagobah, where he's explaining to Luke about the Force, that's the greatest scene in all of Star Wars to me. I love that whole scene where he's explaining the Force and the mysticism of it. To me, that's what I love about Star Wars. I love the whole mysticism of the Force.
Oh, I agree completely.
And he epitomizes that.
That's why Star Wars is so much higher than Star Trek for me. I mean, I love Star Trek, but Star Wars has that wild-eyed, young... it just made the kid in me so curious about the world. Whereas Star Trek made me curious about engineering and technology and things like that. Mm-hmm. The Force was so much more.
Right.
Yeah. And Yoda, again, as a kid, loved Yoda.
Yeah.
So now it'd be your number one.
My number one is Luke Skywalker.
Okay, and Luke was number 6 on my list.
Okay.
So why did Luke beat out Yoda?
One reason and one reason only. I think that Yoda was more powerful than Luke.
Mm-hmm.
Yoda was more knowledgeable than Luke. Yoda messed up in one place that threw Luke to number one for me.
Okay.
That whole thing with the original Jedi Order and the no attachments, all that malarkey, I think that impeded the Jedi. I think the Jedi could have been even better.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine had they said to Anakin, "Oh, you're in love with Padme? That's awesome." Like,
He would have never turned.
exactly. He would have never turned.
Absolutely. I totally believe that. If he was allowed to be open, married, and have a kid with Padme,
Yeah.
he'd still be a Jedi.
Exactly. And so when Yoda and Obi-Wan said to Luke, "You must confront Vader and you must destroy him," they were going back to those old Jedi teachings.
Yep.
And those Jedi teachings were holding them back. And Luke said...
And he tells him, kill your own father.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And Luke said, "I'll confront him." And he confronts him. And when faced with a challenge, when he had the upper hand on Darth Vader...
He says no.
He said, "No, I'm a Jedi like my father before me." I think he kind of messed up in how he understood how the old Jedi was.
But he didn't know.
But he chose love over destruction. He chose compassion. He chose attachment. He chose against all those things in the old Jedi Order.
Which in a way makes him wiser.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the one thing that he did that was better than the rest of the Jedi. He's like, no. And I think maybe just from not knowing, he didn't have all of those old teachings. Yoda was teaching him more about the Force and not about the politics of the Jedi Order.
Which is maybe the way they should have been training all along.
Exactly. Which gives me so much hope and excitement for where they're going with this.
Oh, agreed. I can't wait to see what Luke brings in episode 8.
Jedi Order, like... I know that Jedi Order has probably been destroyed now.
I don't know if they'll go there in episode 8. I truly believe I think he's going to resist training Rey. I think Rey's going to have to convince him. Right. I think he's going to say, "I want nothing to do with training anyone ever again."
Right.
I think that's how the movie will start, but I don't know what you think.
Well, maybe, I mean, and this is kind of all
speculation,
definitely. But we know that Kylo Ren destroyed the new Jedi Order that Luke was building.
Yeah.
So possibly Luke was building this new Jedi Order with compassion or with this attachment. Let's embrace. Let's have relationships with people. Let's have marriages and children and families and all that kind of stuff. And then that all went to shit because Kylo stepped in there and destroyed it all. So then maybe Luke went back to the old Jedi teachings. He went back to the original temple. Maybe he's digging through the old holocrons and seeing, oh wait, we're not supposed to have attachments. And so maybe he starts to get confused and doesn't know where to take it. And so maybe he is very apprehensive to train Rey.
I can't wait to find out.
I know.
I told you before, though, I'm more excited for Rogue One than I am Episode 8.
I'm not.
But
I'm excited for Rogue One. But
as soon as Rogue One's over, I'll be saying, "Oh, I'm excited for Episode 8."
Because I
it's
love
so
the
close.
mysticism about Star Wars. And there is that Chirrut Imwe, who's kind of this Jedi believer, not a Jedi, but
Force believer.
Force believer.
He believes in the Force, not the Jedi.
I don't know that they're going to go too deep into that, though.
No, they won't.
And it's going to be like this Ocean's 11 kind of heist movie where we're going to go steal the plans and lots of tech and lots of ACTs and all that cool stuff, which is going to be great, but it's not going to have a lot of mysticism in it. So to me, Episode 8, I'm much more looking forward to that.
So for me, Luke had to make my list. I mean, obviously, Luke had to be on my list. He was number 6 for me, not number 1. I get your points, though. It's a very good point, the way he ended in Return of the Jedi, why he topped your list. For me, Luke Skywalker was only number 6 for a few reasons. One, he was super annoying as a kid when he wanted to go get some generators from the Tashi station. But in Return of the Jedi, when we truly start seeing at the beginning, there's a deleted scene where he's actually building his lightsaber. They didn't put it into the movie, and I'm glad they didn't, but it was a really cool deleted scene to see him building his new lightsaber. And the way that he handles himself in Jabba's palace, we really get the sense at the beginning that he is a Jedi. But then later on we find out when he goes back to talk to Yoda, no, he's not. You left. You didn't pay attention to what I said. So for me, that was the reason he fell a little lower on my list, because he wasn't that good of a student. And that's the only reason he's not higher on my list, is because I don't think... And, you brought up a good point. When I say I don't think he was that great of a student, you said, well, maybe that's what made him great.
Right.
Because he was taking his own path.
Yeah. Well, and the reason that he left... Like,
to save his friends.
I see my friends in trouble. No, forget about your friends. You got to train here. What are you talking about? Forget about my friends. I got to go save them. I have this ability to be able to save them. And Yoda's like, no, just forget about them. Let's stay here and train some more. And again, maybe that's why he became the greatest Jedi.
Yeah.
In my humble opinion.
Okay. So then we get to my number 1, which is Obi-Wan Kenobi. And where was he on your list?
Number 4.
Okay, so he was high on your list.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, the reason Obi-Wan Kenobi is my number 1 Jedi, 3 big things. First, he killed Maul when Qui-Gon couldn't do it. So Qui-Gon went after him, got
Maul's
cut.
not dead yet, but yeah.
Well, okay, sorry. Cut Maul in half and defeated Maul.
He defeated Maul, yes.
And I'm hoping in Rebels he's going to defeat him again
That'd be amazing.
Finish it off. That's my hope. Which will even...
He has issues with finishing the fight.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that more, too.
And he might not finish these fights because he doesn't like killing. Who knows? Maybe it's his own moral worth.
Yeah.
But also, Obi-Wan Kenobi defeats Anakin Skywalker. You know what? Anakin is a kick-ass Jedi. Now, again...
It defeats him, not kills him.
I said defeats this time.
Yeah.
And turns him into a big burnt ball of mess.
Yeah.
Which eventually turns him into my favorite character. So I also have to thank Obi-Wan for making my favorite evil villain in the world. And I know that Lucas said, Obi-Wan's not that strong in the Force. Lucas went on record saying Obi-Wan is probably a 5 out of 10 for Force-using abilities. But it was always struck me as his wisdom. And I'll be completely honest, if we only had episode 4, 5, and 6, Obi-Wan probably wouldn't even be on my list. Because all he did was lose to battle to Darth Vader and then show up as a Force ghost. Hi, I'm Obi-Wan. But the prequels, the Clone Wars animated series, that flushed out a whole new Obi-Wan Kenobi for me. He was a teacher. He was a mentor. He was very young to be on the council.
Right.
I'd put him at, 40 years old, 35 years old on the council?
Yep.
Which, until Anakin got on, I'd say was probably one of the younger Jedi to ever make the council. And I think they put him on there because of his wisdom.
Yep.
Now, I guess arguably, maybe not the greatest trainer, because he lost Anakin to the dark side. So,
Right, he lost Anakin to the dark side, yep.
Yeah, so, but all in all, fun to watch. So again, my list was my favorite, then powerful, then lightsaber. He was great with a lightsaber. Again, not as good as some of the others. He was never...
Him and Anakin, that battle is the best out of the series.
Yeah, and I mean, I give it to the actors for having learned those. That was amazing. But Obi-Wan is a great lightsaber duelist. But again, I don't think he was ever the best with a lightsaber, ever the best with the Force, ever the best with anything. But combined to me, he was the best.
Okay.
So
I agree with everything that you're saying. He was a fantastic Jedi. I guess I'll have to go over the points or the reasons he's losing points with me. Going back to finishing those fights, it was kind of a jerk move to leave his best friend on the side of a lava burning and not just like give him one last little spear to finish him off. Like,
but to him, his friend was already dead. His friend had turned to the dark side, and he explains that later in episode 4,
right,
where Darth Vader killed Anakin Skywalker.
Right.
So to him, it's not his friend anymore. He's like, I'm done with this.
It's still just to leave a guy burning.
Yeah.
He's screaming. He's in pain and he's in agony. Like, okay, this guy was my friend at one point.
Maybe that's why he couldn't kill him, though. Maybe that's why he couldn't finish him. He had to walk away. It was too much for his brain.
That's tough. Another reason that he's losing points for me is because I think one of the things that he was really good at, specifically in the prequels, was the politics of the Jedi Order.
Yeah.
And I think that was the reason he was on the council.
He followed them to a letter.
Exactly. He followed them to a letter. He was giving Qui-Gon crap about it. Hey, if you just play the game a little bit better, you'd be on the council already.
Yeah.
He's like, no, that's not for me, but it's for Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan's like, well, I'll play the game. He had to deliver the news to Anakin, like, we want you to go spy on the Chancellor. You're asking me to spy? Well, the council is asking, He's the one that's delivering all this news.
He toes the line.
He does. He toes the line for the Jedi Order. And I think the Jedi Order was very corrupt. And that was the reason it fell. Mm-hmm. He does move past that. He does, obviously, on his time on Tatooine, he's focusing on the Force. He's learning how to become one with the Force. He does redeem himself a lot.
Keeping an eye on Luke at the same time.
Keeping the eye on Luke and seizing that opportunity to go in at the opportune moment and say, okay, Luke, it's time to go and take over and let's teach you to become a Jedi. A very powerful Jedi. I really like him. But losing points to me because he toes that line for the Jedi Order. And he's too political in that respect. But I loved him in the Clone Wars and that hinted relationship with Satine.
Oh,
that
yeah.
whole thing. Like,
I'm hoping Rey is Obi-Wan's kid from those two. And I'm hoping she had a baby sometime before she died. Like, I know she dies in the Clone Wars, doesn't she?
Satine, I think that she does.
Yeah, but I'm hoping somewhere in there she might have had a kid.
I think that's too...
Or maybe raise the grandkid.
Yeah, Force Awakens is 30 years after Jedi.
Yeah.
Right? So
but it could be a grandchild.
Could be a grandchild.
That's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping Rey's related to Obi-Wan. I don't think she is, but I hope she is. Yeah.
Yeah. Ben Kenobi, Rey Kenobi.
I'm hoping.
Yeah. It could be cool. I'm so excited for Episode 8. Episode 8, I'm really hoping that we get some sort of Luke counseling with Obi-Wan and Yoda, possibly Anakin.
Well, I'm hearing Christian Haydenson has been in talks.
Hayden Christensen, yeah.
What did I say?
You said Christian Haydenson.
So Hayden Christensen, yeah, I've heard he's in talks with Lucasfilm to do some kind of a Force Ghost cameo. Don't know where that'll be or how it'll happen, but I'd love to see it, even if it's just 2 minutes.
Yeah. I'd love to see a council with kind of the Force Ghost and Luke all just sitting there like, what do we got to do?
That'd be awesome.
Figure this thing out. That's my number one wish.
Okay, so that's our top 10 Jedi list. We're going to run them down for you from number 10 to 1. So Jason, go ahead.
So number 10, I had Mace Windu. Number 9, Tara Sinube. Number 8, Quinlan Voss. Number 7, Plo Koon. 6, Ahsoka Tano. 5, Anakin Skywalker. 4, Obi-Wan Kenobi. 3, Qui-Gon Jinn. Number 2, Yoda. Ouch. And number 1, Luke Skywalker.
Okay, and my top 10 list goes number 10, Qui-Gon Jinn. Number 9, Kanan Jarrus. Number 8, Count Dooku. Number 7, Plo Koon. Number 6, Luke Skywalker. Number 5, Mace Windu. Number 4, Ahsoka Tano. Number 3, Anakin Skywalker. Number 2, Yoda. And number 1, Obi-Wan Kenobi. So I think we both got great lists there.
Yeah, we do.
I would love to hear what you guys think. Who are your top 10 Jedi? Put it in the comments section below. Give us your list. Tell us what you think about our list. Let us know if we're out to lunch according to you, or if you agree with Jason more than me or me more than Jason. That's the fun of Star Wars. We can talk about it forever. That's why we love it. So thanks again, everybody, for watching. If you want to email me, you can email me at movieguySciFi@gmail.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at movieguySciFi. Jason, where can the folks find you if they want to send you a message?
Best place to find me is on Instagram at Vintage Star Wars. You can go there and interact with me or send me a direct message or whatever.
And just so you know, guys, Trench Run Rebels, that's Jason's charity. Please look it up. He has different things going on. You can send him a message if you want to help, because Star Wars is all about helping people, and that's what he's doing with his Star Wars. And I'm definitely impressed with what you've done with Star Wars. So thanks again for being on the show today.
Oh, definitely. I enjoyed it a lot.
And remember, everybody, nerds rule the world.